And a wonderful evening to all of you joining me today, January the 10th, Monday, and just a few days left before we actually enter into the full general election here in Barbados. It's a pleasure to have you joining me today, and certainly we want to be able to share some things with you as I've committed myself to over the next several days to share with you some of the ideas that I have, some of the proposals I have for the constituency, and also to talk a little bit about some of the things that the APP would be giving consideration to if elected as the new government of Barbados. Certainly, we look forward to uh, having your support at the polls, and certainly we know that a lot of our colleagues are out there working hard on the street, and they're doing so for some significant reasons. They have a number of concerns and that we bring to the forefront, and certainly through this meet the candidate this evening, um, I want to be able to address a number of issues, a number of matters, and also offer some solutions and some proposals for the constituency of St. George North. Of course, I'm Ferdinand Nicholls, and I am the candidate for the Alliance Party for Progress, the APP, for St. George North. And it certainly is an honor for me to be offering myself to you in that constituency to for you to give consideration to my representing you in the House of Assembly in Barbados. I believe that as we have entered into this new year, and certainly as the youngest republic in the world at the moment, I believe that there are things that of necessity need to change. Certainly, one of the things I've felt that needs to be significantly addressed is the matter of how we do politics in Barbados. And, I've heard some people talk about the silly season, and I'm sure you have heard that expression, the matter of us being in a silly season. And I want to say this evening that the only silly season I know of is a season where things suddenly seem to start getting done. And the problem here is that this happens not just with the current administration, but with every single administration, election after election. They never seem to engage the processes of having things done until there's an election. And one is left to wonder, what have you been doing all the time? We know that there has been some activity in our country, and it's almost as if things suddenly get accelerated, offers suddenly get put on the table, proposals suddenly get brought forward, and things suddenly get put into action at election time. And that, if there's ever a silly component of elections, that has simply got to be it. I want to say to all of the political parties this evening, Barbadian people are not stupid. To those political parties that have felt that they have an exclusive stranglehold on this country for the past 55 years, and there is no other political party, or for that matter, even independent candidates that can dislodge you and remove you, I want to serve you notice and put you on warning. Things in our country are changing. Things in our region are changing. And the people are much more informed today than they have ever been in their lifetime. Years ago, we used to depend exclusively on certain authority elements in our society providing us with information. Today, due to the technological age in which we live and the advancement in technological devices, every person in the country virtually is capable of accessing information for themselves. They don't need a government. They don't even need an educational system to do that. Many of them can train themselves, excuse me, taking online courses and watching how things are now done on YouTube. And so as a result of that, we have a far more informed and a far more educated environment today than we have ever had in our lives. You can no longer say something and people not even be able to go back and watch what you had said before, either in a previous election campaign, in a previous video or something of the sort, and hold your feet to the fire. Things have changed in our little island of Barbados because things have changed across the entire world. So this country is no longer the ownership of the DLP or the BLP, which seem to be the only two parties that would like us to think have an exclusive right to Barbados. Barbados belongs to Barbadians. And from a faith-based position, it belongs to the creator. It belongs to God, the one who created it. And I use the word creator there to define his job description, not to define who he is. God, the creator, and not creator, the God. God, the creator, made heaven and earth. The earth is his, the fullness thereof, the people and all that dwell therein. That is what it is. And so today we just want to remind the two major political parties in this country that Barbados does not belong to you. With all due respect, with all of the tremendous work that you have done for our country, and no one would be disingenuous enough not to give credit where credit is due. There's an old saying, give Jack his jacket. And certainly there has been a lot that has been accomplished by both political parties in our country that were formerly exclusive parties in the nation that formed governments over the past 55 to 56. This will be the 56th year when we come to November 30th this year. But you don't have ownership of this country. This country belongs to the people of Barbados. I have encountered, as I have gone through, begun to go through our constituency, what is referred to, or what persons refer to themselves as die-hard Labour and die-hard Dems. And I must say that those perspectives have not served our country well. We have been considered from a perspective of the agencies that look into the matter of the corruption index of our country. We have been considered by some agencies that perceive us to be the third most corrupt country in Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, if our successive governments had been doing their job effectively, I would want to say to you tonight that we would not be on that index. We are one of the most indebted countries in the world. We have been borrowing money left, right, and center. And long after we are dead and gone, our children and our grandchildren are going to be left having to foot the bill for the monies that we have borrowed. And that is a worrisome consideration when one gives view to the fact that there has been such a significant change in the attitudes of governments across the world that our country, Barbados, is in danger of sinking into the quagmire of the global elitist environment where they stand the possible chance of taking over our country. And some people may think, well, Rev, you're talking nonsense. We have had funding provided to us from China, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank. I'm not an economist, I'm not a financial guru or anything of the sort, but I think I have just enough common sense that tells me a couple of things about borrowing money. Number one, it has to be repaid. That's one of the realities of borrowing money. Number two, it is borrowed against an asset or against some form of security. I don't know that if an ordinary commercial bank will request of us as national people some form of security, I would be hard pressed to believe that an international agency such as the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund would provide money for Barbados without any guarantees of any kind. Furthermore, I would believe that the Chinese Communist Party would also hardly give us funds out of the goodness of their heart. Such being the case, I would expect that that money would have to be repaid. One thing is sure in the financial sector, that if you borrow money and you default in making payments, then the agency, the institution, by virtue of the contract that they have made with you, whether it be a mortgage or car loan or business loan or whatever it is, based on the contract that they made with you, they reserve the right to come in and take control of whatever the asset that has been offered to them as a security is. It would be interesting to find out what securities as a country we have offered or been required to give to the international funding agencies around the world, whether it be China, the IMF, or for that matter, the World Bank. I want to believe that we are responsible for bringing to the forefront those details so that as a country and as people, we can know what we are up against. Our leadership said to us toward the end of last year that the rationale behind calling the elections had to do with the matter of divisiveness, and that there was a desire to enter into the new year as a united country, united behind one leader and one government. Since 2018, I would like someone to tell me if our country has been united behind any other leader or any other government, other than the administration that is in office or that was in office up until the end of last year. For the past 3 years, and more specifically for the past 2 years of the international pandemic that we have all had to endure and face, our country, while there are people in it that did not agree with some of the aspects of how the pandemic has been handled in our country, and I'm one of them, that felt that more could have been done and should be done and can be done to engage this pandemic that we are facing. But we have chosen to turn a blind eye and ignore global experts, medical and scientific experts, who have made significant representation, accurate representation, studied and examined representation to deal with this pandemic. And several, or I shouldn't even say several, a couple of our medical professionals who have the airwaves want to suggest to us that because we are a different demographic, we cannot benefit from those aspects that other countries are using. I was of the opinion that when a person took ill and that person ran the risk of death, that medical professional individuals had been sworn or swore to do all within their power to save that life. I remember a comment being made about using all the tools to navigate through this pandemic. Yet there are tools outside of our toolbox that can be used to strengthen the response to this pandemic that are simply being ignored at our peril. And I'm not here by any stretch of the imagination accusing anyone of engaging activity that would cause the deliberate demise of the life of anyone in our country. But I believe that, as the old people used to say, there's more in the mortar than the pestle. There are explanations that need to be given, questions that need to be answered, evidence that needs to be brought forward as to why we have stuck to only fundamentally one process of dealing with this pandemic, while there are other countries successfully engaging additional and alternative therapeutic aspects. We were told toward the end of last year that in order for us to handle and navigate through this very difficult time, there was a need for us to unite behind one leader, one government. But this country has been united behind one leader and one government, particularly through the past 2 years. If the rationale given is the uniting of us as a country behind a government and a leader, then I am at a loss as to why it would be necessary to call a general election at the most inopportune time and during the most difficult of circumstances our country has ever faced. As a matter of fact, by calling a general election, what you have done is introduced one of the most divisive elements of a society. I would have to credit Barbadians with an enormous amount of civility, because as I have moved around, not only in our constituency in St. George North, but around the country, while I have encountered those who may not agree with many of my views, and up to yesterday evening, as I was campaigning, I encountered some persons who did not agree with some of my views, and we had one of the most civil discussions I have ever had in my political experience in canvassing in Barbados. A healthy, pleasant conversation. And this is what we are looking for, not only in this election, but in all of the elections to come. The world has adopted a cancel mentality where if you don't agree with my narrative, I will cancel you. We can no longer have healthy dialogue and healthy conversation while we might be on two different sides of the divide and still remain civil. It is clearly being and has been clearly demonstrated in the United States during the tenure of the previous president, where we see social media platforms deplatforming anyone who does not agree with their narrative. As a matter of fact, YouTube posted a community standards document that made it virtually impossible for even a minister to pray for sick people who were sick with this pandemic condition on YouTube. That is one of the highest levels of censorship and ought to send a serious message to every single one of us. What is even more deeply concerning is when our leadership, sitting in an interview with Amanpour of CNN, would suggest that persons who have different views and different opinions would be deemed persons of misinformation and false information, causing the death of millions. That is as disingenuous as you can get. And I was furious when I heard that statement. And I turned virtually, I just turned the YouTube video off, because I said to myself, look at the level we have sunk to in our country, where our leadership, our authorities in our country would consider us murderers if we do not toe the line and agree with their narrative and call our narrative false information and misinformation. That is the height of being disingenuous. And I was extremely upset and terribly disappointed to hear someone who I have admired with brilliance, a tremendous individual, express that kind of a sentiment. And I felt to myself, Barbados has a problem when our leadership would make an international statement of that order. Look, there will always be people who will not agree with us. There will always be people. Jesus Christ was the most perfect man who ever walked the earth, and people didn't agree with his view on a lot of things, to the point where today there are people even in church that don't agree with what he has to say. In some denominations that confront what he has to say and misappropriate what he has to say and misrepresent what he has had to say. So that is a part of life. And even Almighty God gives us the freedom of choice, so that if a person is going to label my opinion as false information and misinformation, what you are doing is that you are censoring what my opinion is and deeming me a threat on the basis of the fact that I don't agree with you. That, my brothers and sisters, is a very serious matter to give consideration to as a country as we face this general election. I have said during this time that we are contending for the soul and the fabric of this nation. And it is things I have heard expressed of this nature that cause me to even solidify my perspective on the fact that we are contending for the soul of this country. When I hear recent sentiments expressed that if we vote for an opposition, we may get the government we did not bargain for, it would suggest that there are people in this country who believe that they have the inevitable and undeniable right to be sole owners of the leadership of this nation, and only one party can get it done. As if all of the brains and brilliance in this country resides only in one or two political institutions. I put it to you, the people of this great nation of Barbados, that there are many brilliant people in our country, some who are apolitical, what I call apolitical. I don't know if it's called apolitical, but not aligned with any political party. And there was a time when we had people like that and we thought something was wrong with them. And we would tell them that they were not really interested in the well-being of our country, because if you were interested in our country, you would be a part of a political party. But we have lived to see the day that persons can make a contribution to their countries without being a political party. Case in point, the Cayman Islands. 12 independents rule the government out of 19 seats. So it has demonstrated the capacity of individuals in our country to run for high office and not necessarily be affiliated or associated with a political party. I have chosen on this occasion to align myself with the Alliance Party for Progress. I have known several of the persons in the party, as I have known several of the persons in the Barbados Labour Party, as I have known several of the persons in the Democratic Labour Party, and down through the years, I have seen things degenerate in both of the major political institutions, making it ripe for a third political party to have the opportunity to restore a level of dignity and respect and decorum to the political environment of our country. I was on a public platform, public environment, public program recently, and I listened to a representative of one of the alternative parties. And I listened to the disingenuous manner in which that individual conducted themselves, in the sense that they were indicating all that they've accomplished as though we hadn't a right to express any dissatisfaction or question, for that matter, anything to do with their presentation and what has been accomplished. And I say to you today, any Barbadian reserves the right to question you. You are the servant of the people. You are not our masters. And it would appear to me that as long as we are in the political campaign begging for a vote, that we are servants. But once that vote is acquired and the authority of governance is established, we forget that we are servants of the people and we lord it over the people. But that is not what a government is supposed to do. And it is time, just like in 2018, when the people of this nation spoke emphatically concerning the fact that the then government was needed to be reminded that they are servants of the people. Likewise, in this general election, the people of this country will speak emphatically and inform the current administration. Well, there's no current administration because Parliament has been dissolved. But this indicate to the previous administration that you are our servants. Now, it may not be the most pleasant connotation, but that's what it is. You are our servants. You don't lord it over us. You don't get in there and make decisions without consultation with the people. And you don't consult with the people just because they have a couple of persons in a place called Parliament. And if they agree, very often, members of Parliament are not expressing the desire of the people in a constituency. And if you doubt me, go and ask the people in a constituency. Pick any one of them. Go through the constituency. Ask them to take a poll in the constituency concerning things that are being decided upon in the House of Assembly, in our Parliament, and see what the feeling of the people is. And as a result of that, I wish to suggest to you that there's a desperate need and a critical need for a change in the politicking in Barbados. We are a new republic. We do not yet know what laws will govern us. And the reason we don't know that is because the existing constitution is not the constitution of a republic or of this republic, because we were guaranteed that there would be discussions for the next 12 months pertaining to the constitution that would govern the affairs of the new Republic of Barbados. So here we are as a republic, and we do not know what legal systems govern us. And I have been advised by some legal luminaries and legal minds that the current document is null and void, in layman's terms, null and void. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I have asked several different attorneys at law concerning the matter, And what they've indicated to me is that in a real sense, our country is no longer being governed by a constitution. And if that's the case, the only governing entity is the leader of the government that existed at the time. Why we put the cart before the horse is anyone's guess. Why the hurry and why the rush? I mean, 55 is not even a significant year in terms of numerical value. We look at, when you're married, 25 years is your silver anniversary, 50 years your gold anniversary. There's significant age landmarks when you turn 21, when you turn 50. Nobody pays attention to when you turn 55. So it certainly can't be to celebrate a specific landmark in terms of the age of our country. So why did we need to rush and press into existence our republic perspective, and why on the day that our father of the nation established independence? For children in the years ahead, November the 30th will be remembered as the day Barbados became a republic and not the day Barbados became an independent country. Trinidad and Tobago, a republic, has an Independence Day and a Republic Day. Why could we not have gone a similar route? Demonstrating the father of our nation, and if you want to call her, the mother of our nation, the mother of our republic, two different elements in the same country, respected in a significant manner. But what our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren will grow up in our country observing will be Republic Day. And that is what's going to stand out most. And I don't want to suggest that there's any deliberate act on anyone's part to reduce the significance of what the Right Honorable Sir Errol Walton Barrow accomplished on November the 30th, 1966. These are some of the questions in many of the minds of Barbadian people, die-hard Dems and die-hard Labour. And if they were honest, they would express it. But I fear that there's so much fear to do so. People are intimidated to express any opposing views, because they feel they will be victimized. And this has been something our country has experienced, not just faced, our country has experienced for many political years. While not all of us have been victimized, we can encounter many in this country who will stand up and tell you that under one administration or the other, they were victimized. I put it to you that an Alliance Party for Progress government will not victimize anyone in this country, whether you give us your support or not. And I give you my solemn promise on the basis of my integrity that should anyone in my party attempt to engage any such process, that they will experience some of the most severe resistance they have ever encountered from myself. Because I am a person who believes in what is right and what is just and what is true. And for far too long in our country, our political landscape has been covered with unrighteousness, injustice, and lies. We have conditions where persons are 20 years in jail awaiting trial. What madness is this, my friend? Well, if you come to trial after 20 years and you're found guilty and sent to prison for 15 years, they should be crediting you with 5 years and paying you for locking you up for an excess of 5 years. How in the name of God can our legal system be righteous and just when persons spend such exorbitantly long periods of time incarcerated without a trial, awaiting trial? This is absolute insanity. This can no longer be entertained and allowed in our country. The time has come for us to take a stand against these things. But you may say to me, but Dr. Nicholls, I hear you. But what are you going to do different that you believe is going to change the course and the destiny of our country? What can you do to bring course correction of our country? Well, first of all, let me say that I believe one of the first things I would like to see enacted, and I know that it is one of the planks of the manifesto that you will shortly be seeing of the Alliance Party for Progress. One of the things that I would like to see is integrity legislation in law, not stopped in Senate. We were promised integrity legislation by this current administration. It was promised on arrival in office or shortly thereafter. We were told that persons' assets were placed in an envelope and sealed, as far as I recall, pending the establishment of integrity legislation. Here we are, 3 years into this administration, and what integrity legislation was passed through the House of Parliament found itself deplatformed in Senate, where incidentally the administration holds the majority. Why? How? Was it because of a legal loophole? Was it because of some matter of legal expression that had to be returned to the Parliament to be revisited? I don't know. I must confess, I don't know. All I know is that the integrity legislation that was promised is yet to be enacted. I believe that we all require an explanation, especially when one considers, as I have said before, that our countries, the perception of Barbados in Latin America and in the Caribbean is that we are the third most corrupt country in this region by some corruption index experts. We have been fluctuating between in the 60s, having risen to the 70s in points at one time, but now around 62 in terms of our position as a society on the corruption index, our points on the corruption index. I heard a former politician express the fact that people are not interested in facts, just impressions. I have also been made to understand that people's perceptions are their realities. I was asked on a public program recently concerning the matter of trust, which I identified and indicated every single government on planet Earth has lost the trust of the people. You only have to look into Europe and see the mass demonstrations, into the Baltic states, see the mass demonstrations and riots, to understand how much trust has been lost by the leadership of our countries. You only have to look at some of our neighbors. When you see a prime minister with his head busted open as a result of a rock stone, as we Bajans would call it, you understand how serious people are in our society today, how stressed, how angry, how untrusting, or they lack trustworthiness in our administrations and in our governments. People no longer trust governments because governments are people, and people no longer trust the people who are the people in the government. And they have a justifiable reason for doing so. Why? Because we are now well-informed persons. You have made provision for the most advanced technological opportunities for your people, and then you're going to get upset when they access authentic, credible information and tell them that it is misinformation and false information because it doesn't make you look good. I promise you that if I'm elected to office to represent the people of St. George North, one of my first presentations in the House of Assembly will be to demand my colleagues to put into place with immediate effect integrity legislation and require every single member of parliament to publicly reveal their assets, not to hide it in an envelope in parliament or in the parliamentary safe, but to reveal it to the people of this country. Because everywhere I have turned in this country, people look at me and tell me politicians are corrupt, politicians are thieves. You going in there, you're going to be just like one of them. That is the view. Persons looked at me and said, most politicians are liars, lawyers. That's exactly how they said it to me. Imagine being a member of a profession where you're branded a liar even before you can open your mouth. And I know even in our profession, we have some dishonest individuals as well. They are in every profession. But the time has come when, as a people, we must demand a higher standard from our public officials and parliamentary representatives. And I commit myself to forcing the matter on the floor of the House of Parliament, the House of Assembly, to ensure integrity legislation is enacted with immediate effect. We need to know what you went in with so that we can see what you come out with and see if there has been any namby-pamby business going on. I also want to suggest that on the basis of what the perception of the people of our country is, that tendering for governmental projects should not be undertaken by any ministry or minister, but that an independent tendering committee should be established to look into the tenders that are received, comprising of professional persons, bankers, lawyers, school teachers, individuals who are credible and who have integrity and respect in our country, for those persons to scrutinize the tenders that are submitted and to come to a decision and present to the minister and to the ministry the person who has best qualified for the tender. That would remove immediately the perception from our country of the lack of transparency and favoritism that many of our people in this country feel has been the case. I heard recently one of my political colleagues addressing the matter of imported houses from China and how it has disenfranchised many of our people working here in this country. I'd like to know who's working on the constructions of those homes. I hope it is Barbadians, because I have visited the gymnasium during the time of its refurbishing, and the only Barbadian persons I saw there were the ones bringing in the cement trucks, pouring the cement. If there were Barbadians involved, I certainly did not see them. Maybe there were. I did not see them. We have got to put Barbados first. I know a lot of people did not particularly like the previous president of the United States, but I agreed with him on one thing. My country comes first. What is in the interest of the citizens and people of my country comes first. I remember the old saying, home drums beat loudest. You remember that? Home drums beat loudest. We have a responsibility to pay attention, first of all, to the citizens of our country. And even as a member of CARICOM, we should be looking after the people of our country and our country first, so that we are in a better position to fulfill our commitments to our neighbors in CARICOM. We were promised, or it was alluded to, I would say, because you have to be very careful the words you use, that after the 2007 World Cup, which was kind of like a test, I almost said a test, it is almost like a test to see how feasible it would be for people to move freely around the Caribbean during Cricket World Cup 2007. And we saw it operate, and I don't recall any major crises arising out of the free movement, significantly free movement of people in the Caribbean during the World Cup 2007. And we would have felt that by 15 years later, my friends, 15 years later, do you know how much could happen in 15 years? My children have gone from 15 to 30, got married and had children. These are the things that can happen in 15 years. You look at yourself in the mirror, you've changed in 15 years. And still today, we do not have freedom of movement in our Caribbean region. As a matter of fact, we don't even have a regional airlines per se to fly through the Caribbean as we used to. If something is not wrong with this picture, folk, for you to see, and for you to query, and for you to question, and for you to say enough is enough, we have to have a significant change, then I don't know what else to say to you. But I did say that you asked me what I would do different and what I would offer. I have so far offered two things. Number one, to ensure that integrity legislation is implemented with immediate effect. Number two, to move the aspect of tendering out of the hands of a minister and ministry and put it in the hands of an independent committee or adjudicating body that would render a fairer and more just verdict and decision. Those are two things I am suggesting to you. Permit me to engage a third. When it comes to matters within our community, we have some brilliant people in our community. Not all of them are secondary school graduates. Not all of them are university degree holders. Many of them are skilled, experienced professional persons. Persons who have developed their abilities over the years. Carpenters, masons, plumbers, seamstress. I remember going through Jericho in St. George North and asking concerning a lady by the name of Miss Paris, who used to do the dresses for almost everybody in the area. And I used to have to walk up from my home in Market Hill on a number of occasions to go to Miss Paris's home to collect dresses for my mother, so that we can have persons within our communities with existing skills and abilities that can help to promote community development. People who are good at woodwork. And when I say woodwork, I don't mean carpentry, I mean woodwork. I was going through another one of the districts in St. George North, and I encountered a home where a gentleman and his son are refurbishing furniture, old furniture, and actually creating furniture. And I thought to myself, because I have recently engaged an online buying and selling perspective with someone, a very good friend of mine out of the Cayman Islands. And I thought to myself, this is really great, because there is an opportunity through the platform that I am going to be representing for artisans to be able to place their goods on an international market that is as far reaching as Russia, South Korea, Africa, England, the United States, where persons are purchasing commodities on this platform from all over the world. And I thought to myself, this is fantastic. Imagine setting up facilities somewhere in our communities where persons of this expertise can help to train some of our young men and some of our young women to bring them out of their impoverished, hopeless, useless life and give them a purpose and a focus in life. So I want to utilize existing skills and abilities of constituents to promote community development. I am not one who likes to impose my perspectives on anyone. I'm not trying to impose a thing on you. I'm sharing facts with you, and you are at liberty to accept them or reject them. And I am here available to you to discuss things with me in these meet the candidate moments. But one of the things that I want to propose for St. George North is the establishment of not a constituency office, but a number of hubs throughout the constituency. Because when I look at the size of the St. George North constituency, I realize that there are persons who have to travel what we would call far in Barbados. I mean, I've learned that far in Barbados, nowhere in Barbados is far. But for some people it is. For the middle-aged and elderly, to travel from Market Hill to the Glebe is far. For you and I who travel overseas, to travel from Market Hill to St. Lucie is not far. Not when we drive from Florida to North Carolina. So I want to see some nodules, so to speak, established throughout the community where persons can go to that location and liaise with the persons who are representing me in the constituency and share with them their concerns, their needs, and those types of things. And those persons in turn will relate that information back to me, and we will begin to act upon the recommendations of the people in the community of St. George North. Now, I don't want to hear any of the political candidates for St. George North taking my ideas and stealing them and trying to enact them. Because when you don't have a vision for something and you try to enact somebody else's vision, you usually run into problems. So I'd like to see that happen in St. George North. Another aspect I would like to see occur is a promotion and a greater development of family. I am told that a nation is only as strong as its families. And families involve fathers and mothers, whether they are married or not, and children. God has made it very clear that a family is constituted by two opposite sex persons and children. While adoption is an option for persons, the intent is for human beings to procreate. And to procreate in any biological form requires opposite sex entities. I think it is only the single cell amoeba that has the capacity to reproduce, and I believe the snail has the capacity to reproduce on its own without any any introduction of any kind. But when it comes to us as human beings, we need to strengthen the support of our families, support for parents, support for children, and that would include single parents, male and female. And we have a lot of very experienced former principals and teachers who, in a sense, formed a family outside of our family, a mom and a dad outside of our mom and dad. Because we, our children, spend a significant amount of time in the hands of our teachers. So one of the things I'd like to see in our community is the development of strong families. And I'd like to see the elevation of the status and dignity of fatherhood through education and training programs. Evening after evening, over the next several days, I will share with you more of my plans for St. George North and more of our party's plans for our great country in Barbados, of Barbados. What I will tell you as I close this session with you tonight is that there's a desperate need for a major paradigm shift in the political practices of our country. The great need for a paradigm shift in the political processes of our country. I have chosen to respect the COVID-19 protocols and host my meetings as much as possible in this virtual forum. I will be holding some spot meetings. I will not be holding any major political meetings. And I will not be intimidated in any way, shape, and form by persons not gathering outside of their homes. I can understand that under the current pandemic requirements. I understand that people have a concern for their well-being, and I respect that. It is one of the reasons that in engaging in my canvassing, I have been very careful to ensure that persons are comfortable with me approaching them. I wear my mask, I maintain my social distancing, and we have conversations together. And I will continue to do that over the next several days. And I will continue to trust the people of St. George North, the people of Barbados, and our God, whom has been our guide for over 300 years, to lead us, to guide our hands on polling day, on election day, to place our X on the spot that he desires for us to place it. I subsequently wish to ask of you to give me the opportunity to represent St. George North in the House of Assembly and contend for your concerns and your needs, and to defend the values and the systems of our country, and to put our country first. To that end, I wish to offer myself to be your representative in the House of Assembly on January the 20th. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. May God bless you, and may God bless our great country, Barbados.